Hey, what's going on everyone? It's been a long time since my last upload, but I am honestly genuinely thrilled to be back on the grind and bringing you guys some informative and hopefully awesome content. I got to visit my dream country of Australia, New Zealand and Fiji, and it was beautiful. But now is the time to prepare because we have so much to cover in the coming weeks, from all the newly announced Galaxy phones to the supposed March Apple event with the new iPhone 9 or SE2, whatever you want to call it, potential new iPads, and of course my most anticipated release, new watch bands. You already know what's going on here. But today, until my new Samsung phones arrive, and because I'm just dying to make and release new content to you guys, I decided to do my full in-depth review of this monstrosity that is the Pro Display XDR, the perfect companion to the new 2019 Mac Pro. We'll dissect its specs, get some awesome shots to showcase its beauty, and discuss whether the $5,000 price tag was justified. And before we begin, I do have some sort of sore throat infection, so yeah, sorry guys for sounding like a dying pig. But without further ado, let's get this party started, shall we? So the unboxing for the Mac Pro itself and accessories, including the insanely overpriced stand, is quite nice. Like typical Apple, you get this huge iconic white Apple box, and housed within, under a lot of padding and protection, is your shiny new Pro Display XDR. That does not come with a stand, mind you. If you want the Pro stand, it will cost you an additional rack, and even the VESA adapter will set you back a couple $100s. Yeah, the Pro life ain't cheap. But anyway, there's a pull tab to assist with this unboxing, so pull that and carefully open the box. Make sure it's laying down on a solid flat surface before doing so. Last thing you want is to be like that one kid that dropped his brand new iPhone 6 or 7 or whatever on live TV, except this would set you back a 5KL. So just be careful. Open up the box and you will see lots of protection for your display, but also inside is a 2mm US style power cord, a 2mm Thunderbolt 3 Pro cable, and a special polishing cloth. The two cables provided are also just like the Mac Pro accessories in that they have this really nice feeling mesh around it that makes them feel way more durable than just any standard cable. About the polishing cloth, I guess it's a good time to mention that the display comes in two variants, a standard glass or a nano etched matte texture glass, which is supposed to be extra good at reducing glare. The nano texture basically looks and feels like the back of the new iPhone 11 Pros. However, opting for such a non-reflective luxury, in case you want to block out the sun rays and the haters, will set you back an extra $1,000 on top of the $5K price tag. Meaning, the standard glass XDR display is $5,000 and the nano texture version is $6,000. That's $6,000 with no standard mount, by the way. And what's even crazier is that the science behind the nano texture version is so intricate and so delicate that Apple advises to only use their polishing cloth. Like seriously, I can't afford to test it with some bounty wipes, but yeah, if you lose the polishing cloth, I'm sure Apple would be glad to replace it for you for $200 or something. Just insane. But getting back to this unboxing, last thing we have to do is carefully lift the display, maybe get a soft towel or blanket to place the display under and remove the protective cloth covering it, and then remove the protective film shrouding the display, and there she is, your shiny brand new XDR display. So if you opted to buy the stand, attaching it is extremely easy, as on the back we have this proprietary technology that latches onto the Pro stand in an instant and requires no tools whatsoever. Just bring it close to the stand carefully and it'll attach magnetically and is perfectly weighted. Check out my review on the Pro stand because even though the stand is a complete ripoff, the stand does give the display that extra wow factor, with it seeming to be weightless and looks pretty elegant on your desk. You'll notice that this display is completely different from your typical iMac display, with those horrendous and outdated bezels and that huge chin that rivals the crimson chin off the Fairly OddParents. The display has bezels that are only 9mm thin around the entire display. With bezels this thin means we get no FaceTime camera, which isn't that big of a deal to me, but might be a bummer to some. But Apple has kindly partnered with Logitech and can sell you an overpriced magnetic Pro, with Pro in quotation marks, 4K camera for $199.95 plus tax. Like, it just seems like it's add-on after add-on with this new Mac Pro generation. For real, what is this, GameStop? Anyway, the display is a bit thick, having a 1-inch aluminum enclosure, but honestly isn't too big of a deal for me. The 1-inch thickness is barely noticeable, and I'd prefer to have that thickness since it is needed to house all that technology to sustain peak brightness and to reproduce such amazing colors. On the back, you'll notice we have that same awesome terrace design carried over from the Mac Pro so that they match and complement each other exceptionally well. The terrace design allows for great heat dissipation, and as a 6K display with these many pixels and individual backlights, it does require enough cooling so that it doesn't overheat and cause your display to dim down. Towards the right, here on the back, we have our power port, a single Thunderbolt 3 port and 3 USB-C ports flanked by Pro Display XDR branding. Diagonally, the display measures 32 inches of viewable space and features True Tone, although on a monitor aimed at reproducing colors down to a T, you may want to disable this feature that essentially makes all your colors look much warmer than they truly are. Altogether, it measures in at 28.3 inches in width, 16.2 inches in height, and 1.1 inches in depth, and without the stand, weighs in at a hefty 16.5 pounds. The magic of the display lies within the internal components, and that's what Apple is really good at. They're great at achieving the perfect balance of amazing external presentation while achieving some of the best specs in the industry. Sometimes. The Pro Display XDR was the first 32-inch Retina 6K display ever and can go as bright as 1600 nits. Crazy amounts of brightness. I don't know if staring at the sun is brighter or 1600 nits, but it's really hard to achieve those 1600 nits unless viewing HDR content or if you really try to force it. Otherwise, it has a 1000 nit sustained brightness, which is really impressive. Most displays can't even reach half that, much less sustain it for long periods of time. It has a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio and a super wide viewing angle with high fidelity colors and contrast at 89 degrees viewed from the left, 89 degrees viewed from the right, and even 89 degrees viewed up or down, meaning you can basically be looking at this right at a full 90-degree perpendicular angle and still be able to reproduce true to life colors. It's just insane. The display is fully laminated, as it should for $5,000, so we see no air gaps between the glass and display, and has a 1.65% reflectivity rating, which is typical. Controversially, I may get some thumbs down for this comment, but slow your horses and lay off the testosterone pills for a bit and hear me out. In the reference monitor business. Oh, here you go, the reference monitor business. I know. But this is actually a good deal. Huge professionals that design artwork or photography for billboard ads, magazines, scientific reproductions require the best color reproduction imaginable. These companies don't want to look like chumps and get a shade of green that ends up looking like doo-doo green. You feel me? Thus, there exists some reference monitors sold by companies like Canon and Sony that can go for well over $40,000. So in retrospect, and in the eye of the professional realm, this Pro XDR display does a decent job at rivaling them and putting up a good fight in this space. Some argue the XDR display fills in a small niche and could never replace those expensive reference monitors, and some would be right. But for what it is, man, it's amazing and is so hard to reproduce through film, like you have to see it in person. There is no way to truly showcase these bombastic colors, this insane sustained brightness, and all those juicy, and I mean juicy pixels, which speaking of, the Pro XDR display's resolution measures in at 6016 by 3384 pixels at 218 pixels per inch. That is an astonishing 20.4 million pixels with an aspect ratio of 16:9. Of course, we see a P3 wide color gamut with 10-bit depth, good for 1.073 billion colors, more than 1 billion colors. I challenge you to name at least 25 colors. Try it. Let me know in the comments if you can. But I'm not done geeking out. No, sir. While specs have been discussed, let's go a little more in depth at the technology behind this amazing display. In order to achieve such technology, much had to be made in the engineering department, which is why the display needs to be about an inch thick. There are many different layers here that we just take for granted. All we see are these mesmerizing colors and millions upon millions of pixels for our naked eye to behold. But beneath the display, we start with 576 individual blue LEDs. Most displays use a single white LED, but Apple chose blue LEDs to allow for unrivaled light control. 12 controllers then quickly modulate each LED so that certain areas of your screen will show up really bright when needed and other areas will show those rich dark blacks, reminiscent of those super dark blacks on an OLED screen, but not quite there. Then we have another layer for light mixing and shaping. What happens here is each LED is treated with a reflective layer. It's a highly customized lens and a geometrically optimized reflector that are unique to this display, and what all of that mumbo jumbo does is it makes so that your display doesn't bloom and effectively stops light when it needs to, so that bright whites don't extend and mix onto darker portions of what you're viewing, although it doesn't do it perfectly. Then comes the color transformation sheet, which then converts the blue light into white light, and normally is extremely hard to do, which is why most monitor manufacturers don't even bother going with blue light. The color transformation sheet does this via hundreds of layers that controls the light spectrum passing through them. We'll take a break from all this nerdy tech talk so that I don't lose you all and show you this super cute dog. I named him Mick. Super cute, right? Okay, going back to the display. With a micro lens array, the XDR display is able to extend exceptional image quality right to the very edge. This is done to create a sense of uniformity of color and brightness across the entire display. And finally, there's a TCON chip which makes all the magic happen. This is just an insane amount of power, and that's where the TCON chip comes in. This chip uses an algorithm specifically created to analyze and reproduce images at a very steady pace. It controls the LEDs at 10 times the rate of the LCD itself, reducing latency. It can even be adjusted to different refresh rates from 47.96 Hz, 48, 50, 59.94, and 60 Hz, and can all be adjusted within the settings. All or most of the allure of this amazing display is made capable by the TCON chip, so it's quite a marvel to see in action. Not to mention the amazing experience you get while using macOS with this thing. It is amazing to use on Final Cut Pro. Like, resize your windows and you have so much screen real estate to work with. Don't get me started on Photoshop. You have this massive canvas to work with and the colors are so rich and vibrant. It's amazing. If picking up the Pro stand, the display can be rotated 90 degrees and now you can view all of your beautiful content in portrait mode, which can be especially useful in coding on MATLAB, Python, or RStudio when having very long strings of complex coding. The display is a little muddy with compatibility, as there have been some complaints on whether your other Macs will truly be displayed in 6K or downscale to 5K or even 4K. If connected to the 2019 Mac Pro, it will only work with any of the MPX module GPUs, which is a huge bummer if you were planning to use your own GPU. You'll get that god tier 6K goodness with those MPX modules attached, but maybe different on other devices. But officially, the display works with the following devices on screen, and remember that it may or may not output at 6K on older Mac devices. So ultimately, for $5,000, is this the perfect display we had been hoping for? Kinda, so-and-so. Those 576 individual LEDs is cool and all, but have been warnings that light blooming may still be an issue, especially for fine detail. This is especially problematic on a 6K display that boasts 20.4 million pixels, and while Apple has made an engineering marvel to sustain that 1000 nit peak, it won't do so in hot environments. It can only do this if the room temperature is below 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees for my Americans. Any hotter and the backlighting will begin to throttle and dim down. So it's not perfect, and that light blooming is noticeable from time to time. I'm not sure if it shows on camera, but essentially light blooming is where brighter areas bleed into darker ones and lighten adjacent black levels. Kinda hard to demonstrate here, but it's not perfect, and for dishing out $5,000, you'd expect it to be a monitor sent straight from God. I get that a lot of engineering went into this and is an amazing display, but it does have some small drawbacks and is not perfect. They may be nitpicky points, but I just want you all to know all the details. So at the end of the day, is it worth it? Hell no! But as a tech YouTuber and an Apple fanboy / Apple slave, I just had to get my hands on it. But one of the LG 4K or 5K monitors that are sold through Apple are just as good, trust me. The 5K LG display will save you several thousands of dollars, and for the average person is just as good. Trust me on this one. This monitor is really for those who absolutely need all this power and all these pixels for their work, hobby, or projects. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And also, check my description and pinned comment for future content and how you can be the winner of an Apple Watch Series 5 and a brand new pair of AirPods Pro. I really can't wait for all this future content for you guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!